And I think until you accept it, you're not able to even start healing.
You're listening to Life After Losing Mom with me, Kat Bonner. On this podcast, you'll hear from other women who have lost their mom and discovered the exact coping strategies you need to get through the day and be in the best place you've ever been. Don't miss another episode of Life After Losing Mom. Subscribe today. More information can be found at katbonner.com/podcast. And if you'd like to join a group of like-minded women, head to Facebook and search for the Life After Losing Mom community.
All right. So when I was in college, a freshman in college, my mom got diagnosed with cancer. It was super, super sudden. One day she came downstairs and the whole right side of her body was numb. They sent her to the hospital, and it turns out she had metastatic melanoma, and it had already spread everywhere. So basically one day my life was completely normal. The next, it was changed completely. She got pretty sick pretty fast. She had a few months that were okay. But I mean, cancer is cancer, and she really wasn't doing all that great any of the time. In about 7 months exactly from the time that she was diagnosed, she died.
Wow. Okay. Sorry. I want to make sure you were done.
I was thinking about if I wanted to add more or not.
It's okay. Yeah, all there really is to that. I know that you are pretty open on your blog about, how your mom passed and that sort of thing, like the type of cancer. And if I remember correctly, it was melanoma. So was your mom like a tanning bed user, if you don't mind me asking? Like, did she get out in the sun a lot?
So my mom was actually like the picture of melanoma. Before she got sick, like it actually would be a joke. Like I would say, like, melanoma must not exist because if it did, you would have it. And that sounds so stupid now thinking back, but like we had a tanning bed in our house. Like my mom was a tanaholic. In the summer, she was outside all of the time. She loved being tan. Like people used to joke like, oh my God, you and your mom must not even be the same race. Cause like she was like a dark brown all the time. Like she loved being tan. She she liked being burnt. She'd lay outside until she was burnt because she knew it would turn to tan. In the winter, she'd be in the tanning bed all the time. She actually had melanoma removed from her arm years and years prior that my parents just never even told me about because I was young and it wasn't supposed to be anything serious. She was supposed to get it removed and that was it. But apparently it wasn't it. And that whole time it may have been continuing to spread elsewhere. And that's when she got diagnosed years later.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because I think too, like you live up north and I hear about, that seasonal affective disorder thing. And, I don't know if your mom had that, but it's just crazy to think how, something that seems so small as melanoma can really not be small, I mean, it just goes to show to take everything really seriously. So I guess, you kind of like sort of joked about it per se as you were younger, but was that thought ever in the back of your mind, like seriously, that your mom might get skin cancer?
I mean, I guess like you just never think something like that's going to happen to you. And I never really knew, like, people always like had said to me when my mom was sick, like, oh, it's just skin cancer, but like, it's not. And to me, that's always what I thought. Like, yeah, even if she did get skin cancer, it's just skin cancer. She'll get it removed and she'd be fine. So nothing serious really ever crossed my mind because until my mom got sick, I didn't even know metastatic melanoma was a thing. I didn't even know people were dying. There was a version of skin cancer people were dying from. Like that was all completely new to me. Like me and my dad were doing research online after she got diagnosed and we had no clue that was even a thing.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I guess I definitely like how, you pointed out where you never really think that it's gonna happen to you, but I guess it just goes to show how, I don't know, serious anything can be. So I'm assuming now you probably hate all tanning beds. Has your, view on that really changed? Cause I think you're pretty fair skinned too.
Yeah. So actually before all of this, like I was a tanner too. My mom would drive me to the tanning salon. I tanned in the winter all the time. I hated being pale too. In the summer, I would obviously burn pretty easily because I'm very light skinned. now, like, people know to not even like mention the word tanning bed around me. Like, it makes me so angry. I can't even fathom why people would do it, especially after hearing my mom's story and like what we went through. But then I guess part of me has to understand that I never thought it would happen to me. So why should anybody else think it's going to happen to them? But it does make me really mad.
Yeah, I personally despise tanning beds. I think they're like just, I mean, I'm all for, loving the skin you're in. I know it sounds really cliche and stupid, but especially knowing if you're like already susceptible to, getting some type of skin cancer or skin ailment or
Right.
I don't know, anything crazy like that. I'm not a doctor, but I'm like, okay, I'm really not, I already know I'm like super white, so I'm definitely not gonna do this.
Right.
So would you say you like, what's the court word called? And like had any anticipatory grief when your mom got sick, or was it all just kind of too fast, too furious?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting because I think me and my dad handled it really different. And I think that I was grieving my mom while she was sick. I think I saw it a lot. I'm definitely like a glass half empty kind of person. Like, I always prepare for the worst, whereas my dad's super optimistic and always is thinking like the best case scenario of everything. And I spent a lot of time, my mom being sick, like reading up like what it's like when someone starts to die, or like the symptoms that somebody's dying, or all the statistics of how long people live with metastatic melanoma. Whereas I think when my mom died, my dad was like, oh my God, like, this is it, it's done. Whereas I had been getting to that point and really going through anticipatory grief for a long time. Because in my head somewhere, it was, I had already lost my mom. Like, so much was changing about her that even though, like, of course, I would have loved for her to be the miracle, it's hard. I don't really think that way. I'm kind of more of a, I don't want to say a rational thinker, but I just, in my head, I knew that this was going to be the outcome, whether I wanted it to be or not. So I think that that actually helped me in my grief process more so because I was already months ahead of the game when my mom died.
Yeah, I mean, I like how you mentioned that. It's hard because in a way, I mean, you can never really prepare yourself for this, but almost, and I would never really recommend people to be a glass half empty kind of person, but sometimes you do have to be realistic.
Right.
And I could definitely see how that was very possible, in your situation.
Right.
So would you say, like, based on this conversation, I'm thinking, like, I guess, right, like, when your mom was sick, like, the hardest part was, like, maybe realizing that she was going to pass, but, like, after that, like, since she's been gone, has the way she gone, really been hard for you? Or do you get what I'm asking? Like, what has been, like, I guess you struggled with, when she was sick, like, struggled with actually, like, her being sick and the realization that this is real. But is that still, one of the hardest parts of your grief process, or is it had just been, like, completely transformative?
I think, like, while she was sick, it was super hard in the sense that everything we would do, I would have in the back of my mind, like, this is the last time we're going to do this, even though I didn't actually want that to happen. And I had also in another part of my mind, like, okay, maybe she will live a little longer. Like, maybe there will be another time we do this. But that was always something that I was thinking of and that was in my head during those times. But then after she died, it was, wow, that really was the last time. And each new thing that happened became then like the first without my mom. So like they kind of like, it blends together in a way. I was grieving her when she was still there, when it was the last time I was getting to do those things, even though I was in the moment with her. But then as time has gone on, and it was the first time I had to have a Mother's Day without her, a holiday without her, go on a vacation without her, it was a whole new hard, like, compared to like at least those times where I knew it was the last one, I still at least had that last one. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that definitely makes perfect sense. So, kind of seeming like, milestones have been a big struggle, just I mean, even when your mom was sick, you kind of prepared yourself, it seemed like, for it being the last so and so with her. And you can kind of sort of mentally like prepare yourself for that. But when they're gone, it's like, how the heck do I do this?
Right. Right. Like in my head, I had thought I had it all. Like I was figuring it out as I went. And then when it actually came down to it and new things that happened without her, it really was like a whole new version of grief. Like, although I did some grieving while she was alive, it was nothing compared to how you grieve after your mom has died.
Yeah, 100%. So is there like a certain milestone that you have really struggled with? I mean, Mother's Day is Mother's Day, so I don't really consider that a milestone.
Right. That's just the worst day in the world.
Pretty much. But is there like a certain, like, I don't know, like maybe like graduation? I don't think you're married or have kids, so that's, not necessarily relevant. But
Yeah,
it's been like
so
the
my
hardest
mom
one without
wasn't
your
there
mom.
when I graduated undergrad or grad school, but undergrad was harder, obviously, because it was the first really big thing. And my mom got sick and died when I was in college. And there was a point where I didn't even think I would finish college after that. Like, that was
Yeah.
the last thing on my mind. And I still did graduate in 4 years. So that was like such a big deal, just because not only like everybody in the world was like, oh my God, how did you do that? Like, how have you managed to get through this? But it was the first big thing without her. And I think it was even harder because it was the first time I saw my dad express any kind of emotion, that it was the first thing that of mine that he was going through without her. So on a day that like we should have been so happy, like his daughter's graduating college, I'm graduating college, we were like, we couldn't be the same kind of happy because that person was missing that we should be sharing it with, and who started that kind of journey with us, since she was alive when I started college, but not when I finished.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you said, yeah, it was your freshman year, I believe, when she
She
passed.
got sick my freshman year, and then she died the fall of my sophomore year.
Okay. So definitely, wow. So it was still, pretty fresh when you graduated college too. And I feel like
Right.
undergrad is always like harder than grad school. I mean, I haven't gotten my master's, but just because you like kind of have more of a choice, when it comes to undergrad and masters, you're just like, all right, I'm going to go where I get accepted at this point. So the parents just seem to be like more involved with that
Right. And that's like the
choice.
first big step you
So
take of like being an adult.
yeah. And not to mention, too, I mean, undergrad comes before grad school. So if your mom passes when you're an undergrad, that's going to be like the first graduation feat without her.
Right.
So it just all kind of, it's like, all right, I made it through undergrad graduation. Like, when it comes time to get a master's or whatever, like, the next one should be pretty, like, a walk in the park compared to this one.
Right.
So, okay, well, I like that you definitely brought up graduation. How did you like cope with, I guess, just not just milestones in general? I mean, not just graduation specifically, but just milestones in general, and not having your mom. I think that's just something that a lot of women, I know that I've struggled with it. So, how do
Right.
you like honor her, I guess?
I think it's one of those things that like you can, I say it all, I write about it all the time, at least. Regular days are regular days. Like, you have good days, you have bad days. You go, as time goes on, you have less bad days, and it does seem to get easier because you start to adjust to this new reality. But milestones are one of those things that like always bring it like back to the center of your mind. Like, you could have had a good day 6 months straight, and then all of a sudden you start a new job, or you graduate, or something as little at something little, or something as big as you're getting engaged, or you're going to get married. Like, those things are never going to be as happy as they were for somebody who hasn't been through all of that, especially as like a daughter with a mom. Like, your mom plays such a huge role in really everything in your life, that I think that that's something that just never truly will get easier. So I think just finding a way to try to incorporate her into everything. Like, I had pictures of her on my graduation cap, or like when I get married, I'm sure I will find plenty of ways to incorporate her into that too. But I think it's just important to accept that it's never going to be normal for someone who's gone through something like that at a way younger age than they should and still has all those milestones left. Like, it's just never going to be.
Yeah, you're very right. And I mean, it's definitely important to find ways to, honor her. And I mean, that's, very relative to the person. But I think too, just finding that like little something, it's crazy how that in itself is like able to help you grieve and to help you cope with, these milestones. And like I said, I'm sure having a wedding and having children is completely different without your mom, because that's a very like mother-daughter centered, experience. But milestones are still milestones to a certain extent at the end of the day. And it's definitely important to just try to, mind over matter. I know it sounds really stupid, but like doing whatever you can, having like a positive outlook and not like dwelling that, letting it, ruin your milestone. Like, even if it's something, I guess milestones can be bad or, negative, but
right. And that's a whole another issue.
Exactly. But just making the effort and being intentional about like trying to just make it one that is memorable and positive. And I think, milestones, are going to happen for the rest of your life, but I do think that it becomes less of a chore and like you have to try less to be positive because you just kind of are, because you're used to it as you go through milestones.
Right. I think the biggest thing for me and really for anyone is you have to just accept that this is your reality. And like, I think that sometimes that comes off harsh when I say that to people, and people like give me that start feeling bad for me. And it's like, okay, I get it. You feel bad for me. You can't imagine what I'm going through, which is my least favorite phrase because I could never have imagined it either. And what other choice do you have? And I find myself saying that to people all the time. But the point is your life is going to go on, whether you want it to the way it is or not. Like, that's what it is. So there's two options. You can either accept it and try to make the best of it, or you could let it just ruin everything. So I think the more and more of accepting that, yeah, this sucks and it's not fair. And I don't know why it had to be my family, but at the end of the day, like, this is my life. And
oh my gosh, you're my soul sister. I love this. It's so true though. And like, especially, I guess I couldn't even count how many milestones I've been through without my mom. Like, I don't really think that's relevant, but eventually, and I feel like too, especially with the undergrad, like, or even graduating college, they're normally pretty close to Mother's Day, and you're like, oh, great. Like,
always.
This is awful.
Right.
But just really separating, like, the two, or even, I don't know, just like, yeah, having that mindset and realizing that, like, this is the way that it's going to be. Like, especially when it comes to milestones, like, okay, I'm not going to have my mom here for this. And like, that in advance. So what am I going to do about it?
Right. And that's not being said that that's ever going to be easy. But I feel like for the rest of my life, these things are always going to be hard. And I'm always going to have my little pity party beforehand, afterwards. Like, that's all part of it. But you have to like differentiate and draw the line somewhere of like, am I going to let this destroy me and ruin this moment? Or am I going to try to say, look at how far I've come since my mom died. Like, my mom would be so proud. This is awesome.
Yeah. And I think it's very important too, like you said, to realize like how proud your mom would be of you, because we oftentimes, at least I have, oftentimes forgotten that and just thought about like, oh, like, I wish she could be here, yada, yada, yada. But like, people should be proud of themselves for whatever milestone they're going through, like, just to get to that milestone, regardless if they had to really do anything to get to the milestone. You made it through another day in the life of grieving the loss of your mom. That's something still pretty commendable. So, regardless of what it is, it's definitely something. I mean, I'm bad about it too, but it's definitely been like, I need to instill in my brain, hey, like, my mom should be proud of me, or my mom is proud of me. I should be proud of me. So, let's make this a good milestone despite the situation. And then eventually it just gets easier. You know, it's like, I mean, you kind of have to have the same mindset, like, each time one of them arises. So hopefully it would become, you know, more second nature. It's still, I hate the word easy, because I wouldn't say like not having your mom gets easier, but you just get more used to it. So that it's easier, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you just start to adjust to your new normal, I think.
Yeah, very much so. So that facet of it, I think managing the grief gets easier as you manage it, as you go through life, because that's just kind of the nature of the beast. So when you were mentioning, like, you know, getting married or like having children, have you thought about ways that you would, you know, honor your mom or cope with those days? Like, I'm personally terrified to ever get married or have kids, because I don't know how I'm going to do it without my mom. And I know that's not the right mindset, but
no, you're right. Somebody actually asked me that question on a question and answer I did on my Instagram a few weeks back, and more so like, do you think you'll ever get married? Because I can't even imagine getting married. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, there's a reason why I'm the way I am. And I always say, like, I'm in no rush to get married. Like, I'll get married one day, maybe, or not. Like, I'm okay if I don't have kids. And like, I wasn't like that when my mom was alive. Like, I definitely always saw myself like at least getting married and having like a kid or something. But like now it's so hard for me to even wrap my head around that. Like, I'm at the age where my friends have started to get married and have kids, or here, like a few here and there, but like I've been in weddings, and my cousins are getting married and having babies, and I'm watching them all do it with their moms. And I am like, holy shit, what am I supposed to do? Like, my dad is great. Like, literally, he's the best, but I can't even like get through a conversation with my aunt, who I'm super close with, helping her plan my cousin's wedding without me like wanting to throw a tantrum and scream, because it's just like, I can't even imagine like not having my mom to do that. So it's hard for me to even get there and picture what that day would be like, because I don't even know, like, I can't even try to fathom doing it.
Oh my God. I'm like so glad you mentioned that. I feel so much less alone. And it's weird. Like, I look on Pinterest on, you know, ways to honor your mom at your wedding, and it seems so easy. And I have, you know, this crazy idea. Like, I basically have my dream wedding planned that's probably, you know, never going to happen and non-existent. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I'm going to sing a song for my mom. Like, I'm going to write one. I don't know, just something super crazy. But when it boils down to it, like, no matter where I'm at in my grief, like, if I'm in the best place, like, ever, there is no way, I don't think I would ever be able to, like, emotionally handle that. And that is a day that is supposed to bring such joy. And, oh boy, how to make that joyful will be very interesting.
Right. And
if the time comes, but I'm just like, I don't know, dude.
Right. And maybe if I was in that situation and close to at the point where I was going to be getting married, and maybe it would be different. And maybe just because I'm nowhere near that place in my life, I think that way. But I've been in 3 weddings now, all of which their moms played a big role in everything leading up to the wedding. But then I watched my cousin get married without her dad, and how hard that was in a whole way. So I don't know if I could say like one loss is worse than the other, but I just think like in my reality, it's hard for me to imagine doing it, is all I know.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my word. I get emotional like just at weddings in general.
Oh yeah, me too. I hate them.
Who I'm not even super close with. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, if I'm emotional at a wedding of like a family friend that I see once a year, like, Oh my word. And I'm not saying I wish that, like, you know, I had been closer to those like milestones in my life when my mom passed, but I feel like, and I could be wrong, but like for a lot of us who, were maybe younger, like if our mom passed closer to those times, like if I was already engaged, like my mom had passed, I feel like I would just be so focused. Like I would have been so focused on the wedding that it might not have affected me that much. And I could be very wrong, but that's just the way that I think about it. Like since it's been years since my mom passed and I'm already like on the road to healing, like a wedding's not anywhere in my brain.
Right.
I was about to say, okay, that definitely makes sense. And having kids, oh my word, I'm not even gonna go there.
Yeah, that needs a whole episode.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to have children for reasons I'm not gonna get into, but especially having kids without your mom, that just sounds really, really, really terrible. So I hope one day, like, I can get out of that mindset almost, because I definitely think it is a mindset, but, and like you said, I was never this way either before I lost my mom. And I don't like, to blame her death on the things that I believe. But at the end of the day, like me not wanting to get married and me not wanting to have kids, I really think manifested itself from losing my mom.
Right. For sure.
And that's something, important to acknowledge, that obviously a lot of women don't understand, but I'm not even going to bring like boys into this, but a lot of men especially don't understand that. So I'm just like, all right, dude, like, it is what it is, but having, I don't know, I just hope, like our mindsets and just the mindset of people, who feel this way too. I'm not saying it's a bad thing if like we feel this way forever, but I hope it doesn't turn into something bad. And I don't really know how to like control that to where, me not wanting to get married becomes like damaging. And I'm like talking myself out of like getting married when I could very well like be dating somebody who I could be married to. Does that make sense? Like, I have no idea where that line is. For sure. What are your thoughts on that?
I guess I just like to think that when you get to that point, maybe it'll be different. And I mean, and maybe things have changed. And if I do get married, maybe it's not that I'm going to have a big, elaborate, traditional wedding. Maybe we just need to, or for whatever version of your own, create your own version of that day. Maybe not what was always in your head, because that's just too much to fathom without your mom, but you could still do that, be happy, be married, have a life, but you maybe can have your own version of that.
Yeah, that's very true. So let's see. Were milestones, like going through milestones without your mom, what really piqued your interest in blogging? Like, when did you start that?
So it was like a total accident. I was in a relationship for quite a while after my mom and I broke up. After my mom died, we broke up. Maybe a couple years later. I don't even know, all the years start to blend together at this point.
You were dating a guy and you broke up?
Yeah, so when we broke up, it was a few years after my mom died. It was a terrible breakup, super unhealthy, an unhealthy relationship, a terrible breakup. Like, I was just a hot mess. And that was my first real version of grief after my mom died. Like, it was losing this other person who was so important in my life after my mom, that had filled so many of those voids for me in different ways, and just filled so much of that. So I was just in a really, really bad place and didn't know what to do with myself. And I was scrolling through Facebook one day and I saw an ad for this site, Pucker Mob. I don't know if you heard of it. It's where I started blogging years and years ago.
Oh, like Pucker Mob?
Saying, yes. So
Oh, yeah.
there was an ad for them, like that you could just share your posts and get them published on this site and whatever. And I was like, I'm going to write something about my mom dying. Like, I always like to write. And I wrote this blog post. I posted it, or I shared it with them. They posted it to their page. I shared it on Facebook. And I remember I went downstairs to my dad and I was like, I just wrote this blog for this site called Pucker Mob. Like, and I'm telling you about it. And he's like, what? Like, what's a blog? Like, I'm like, no, like, read it. Like, tell me what you think. And he was like, wow, that's really good. But like, people are going to see that. And I'm like, I don't know. But like, I felt so good doing it. So I started writing then what it was like to like go through a breakup without my mom, and then what it was like to date without my mom. And I started like channeling my breakup to losing my mom and writing. And one day I woke up and this page on Facebook had shared my article who had like 200,000 followers. And all of a sudden, like thousands of people were reading my article and commenting on it and sharing it. And I'm like, oh my God, holy shit. Like, people actually care about what I have to say. And one thing led to another. I made this Facebook page. It started off as just like my name, and I would link it at the bottom of blog posts and people would like it. And then next thing I know, there's thousands of people who are reading my writing and people messaging me from all over the world. And I ended up making my own website where actually nobody like writes for Pucker Mob anymore. There's actually a lot of controversy with them trying to steal our work and use it without our names on it and all sorts of stuff that I won't even get into. So that's when I broke out and wrote my own page, made my own blog page, and it's just really just taken off from there and become like the greatest coping mechanism ever. I get messages every day, like how people are thanking me for how much I've helped them and saved their life. And like, that's literally what my blog has done for me. So it's just a bonus that I'm helping other people. Like it's become so great to see that I can help other people, but I really started it just to help myself through like a difficult time and find a distraction and an outlet.
That's so funny. I love it. I feel like a lot of these things do happen by accident. And like, it's kind of funny because the breakup almost was, a milestone, and you go through something super, I would say detrimental.
That's back to like the bad milestones, like the hard things you have to go through without your mom, which are like, there's no way to find positivity in that. That's just like an absolute double negative.
Absolutely.
But if that didn't happen, I don't know if I would say I would never have written anything, but maybe I wouldn't have. And maybe that was something that I needed to hit a rock bottom and then find this outlet that's become like such a huge part of my life and something in this community I've created that I honestly don't even know how has become. I just hit 20,000 likes on Facebook the other day, and it blows my mind that 20,000 people want to read what I have to write, and it actually helps them.
Oh my gosh,
so cool,
that's so funny.
That was not
amazing. I mean, it's really crazy to think too that there's like 20,000 women. Well, I would think that there, are 20,000 women who are in our positions. I'm like, okay. Like, I thought I was so alone when this happened, but I'm so not. I mean, granted, in my immediate friend group, I was probably alone, but let's be honest. I mean, even just from the time that, like, I was in high school and then going off to college, I mean, I could count on two hands, literally in 4 years, how many girls that I went to college with who either lost a mom or lost a dad while they were in college. And I was just like, my mind is blown. I mean, I went to an all-women's college too, so that was kind of a given. But still, it just like, and I mean,
something you never would have really, I think, noticed if you didn't go through it. Like, I now notice like people who I went to high school with or I went to college with, I'll see it on Facebook and I'll reach out and send them a message. But like, if my mom hadn't died, like, I don't think that would have been something that fazed me. Like, how many people actually go through this? And you're right, my blog is a perfect example. And there might be people of all different ages. Like, I don't know how many of those people lost their mom young. But the point is there's a lot of people out there who are still struggling with that same loss. Whereas in our own world, in our own friend group, like in my community, like I was the girl that's mom died. like everyone's friends' parents. I'd walk into their house and for years they'd look at me with that like, oh my God, I feel so bad for you face that I just can't stand. But like, that's like who we were in our little worlds. And like from my little town, not a ton of people had gone through something like that. But in the grand scheme of things, so many people do.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I don't know, just to think that, you know, you're able to help people who might not think that, you know, they might have been in your shoes, you know, not know anybody who has been through the same thing.
Right.
Like being a small
right.
town.
I get messages like that all the time. Like I had no idea that there were this many people who could follow a page that have all been through this. Like I literally thought I had no one, and there's all these people commenting on your posts that are saying the same thing as me, and you're writing the thoughts in my head, and it's cool. Like it really is.
Yeah, I like it's definitely unfathomable. I mean, to think that there's like they think the same thing and they feel the same way, and not everybody is able to definitely, you know, put their feelings out there the way that you are. Not everybody is able to, you know, write about it and speak about it. And it's almost like, okay, seeing somebody who has found their outlet and has found, you know, some source of healing, you know, wherever, however, you know, that was, it's like, okay, you know, it makes me want to go out there and do it too, regardless of, you know, how I do it. And you see that it really is possible.
Right.
Because I love you just paused. Because it's like how, I mean, it's so easy to get stuck, you know, in your ways. And I know too, you know, when you go through milestones or, you know, those bad things where you wish your mom was there, at the end of the day, it still brings your grief back. And it still is like, okay, just a constant reminder, you know, that your mom isn't there. And it just goes to show sometimes, you know, you have to hit rock bottom. You have to go through something pretty bad without your mom for you to start your healing process. And I know that's not an easy thing to realize, but things can't get much worse than what they are.
You're right.
And it's like things weren't really that bad. Well, I guess when bad things happen, it's like, it's not the bad thing that happened. It's just so bad because it reminded me so much that my mom is not here to help me through it.
Right. In something that you always had turned to your mom for in the past. I think that was the hardest.
But once you get through that, it's like, okay, I got through this. I can go ahead and I can get through anything.
Right.
So do you find yourself like just blogging when, you know, you like want to blog or when you feel called to? Like, is there like a schedule? I mean, I feel like it's just hard because grief in general is so like unpredictable.
Right. Grief is definitely not on a schedule, which is why my blogs are all over the place. Like one week you'll see I wrote 5 times and then I won't write for 3 weeks and I'll just like reshare older posts here and there. But like when I get an idea, like they come whenever, something so small or a conversation with somebody or a conversation I have with a patient at work, like triggers an idea of something I want to write about, and I will just put a note in my phone, and then as soon as I can get to a computer or at least just type up a draft in my notepad, I do. It happens a lot when I'm working out, when I'm meeting with a patient at work, a lot of inopportune times that my brain's working but I can't like sit down and write right at that moment, so I always just have to like make a note of it and then go back and try to like revisit those feelings. But no, I definitely never plan when I'm going to write. It's just whenever something comes to my head.
I think that's important because it literally just goes to show how, like, you can't plan grief. I mean, I know people probably know that, but to actually have, like, a platform centered around grief, and it's just like, okay, today I'm going to write about grief is very much so, you know, saying what's on your mind and saying how you feel, you know. yada, yada, yada.
Right. And I think if
So,
it wasn't happening right when you think of it, like you'd be doing it, like it wouldn't be as authentic. It wouldn't, like when I write, I just write as like what I'm thinking about at that moment. If you said to me, hey, write about this, I could do it, but it wouldn't be the same because it wouldn't be something I was feeling at that time. Do you know
exactly.
what I
And
mean?
people would definitely be able to tell. And that's not really going to help people in their grief process. I mean, come on. It's just going to be like staged. So,
Right. So I've always from the beginning, like made it a point to like just be super authentic. Like I will write posts when I've had a terrible week and that's why I haven't wrote, or like to really just show everybody that like I'm human. Like sure, I'm a decent writer and people like to read what I write and I have this website and stuff now, but that doesn't mean that there's anything like nice about grief. Like it's all super real feelings, and I write about the other stuff I go through outside of grief and how it all kind of turns back, because the reality is like this is my life, this is your life, this is all of these people's lives, and it's not pretty, it's not easy. So I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it and make it seem like it is.
exactly. That's 100% the worst thing you can do. So let's see. I guess my last question, about blogging that I could ask. When you first started off, did you find it like hard, I guess, to put your thoughts on paper, or did you find that it took you a long time to do that? Has it gotten easier in that sense as time has gone on?
Yeah, so writing has always been like my natural way of communicating. I've always written well. I've always journaled. After my mom died, I journaled a lot. After me and my ex broke up, I journaled a lot. So I always kind of used writing. I just never did it in a blog sense. I've always been able to like articulate words together better writing than I am talking. Um, I've always expressed myself better writing. So it comes so naturally. Like I get an idea and I could write the whole blog post in 5 minutes and go back and read it and be like, holy shit, where did that come from? Because it just comes out. Like if I was trying to explain all of those feelings talking, you would say, what did you just say? Like it would make no sense. Just like a bunch of jumble in my head, but it comes out when I write.
Yeah, and that's very important, I think, for people to like, as they're figuring out what their outlet is, in their grief journey, or just figuring out ways, I guess, to really express emotions. I think when people come, like when they think about that, they're like, oh, like there's only writing or talking. And I'm like, no, there's definitely a whole bunch of, other creative ways you can do that. So I've definitely recommended people like, hey, pick something that comes naturally to you. And, people tend to like realize it, pretty quickly, because if it comes natural to you, it won't be like hard. At least the actual action won't be hard. Like actually writing for you isn't a huge feat. So I feel like that almost makes writing about grief less difficult because you're good at writing.
Right. Yeah. No, it's super therapeutic. There's nothing that's like a task about it. If it was, I wouldn't do it. I mean,
Exactly.
I enjoy it. It helps me. It helps other people. It's honestly just like a win-win.
I'm so glad you found that great. So most people probably know, like, where are you like active on Instagram? Your Facebook groups. Do you just post your blog posts to there?
So I recently made an Instagram attached to my blog. I'm working on developing. It's healing_through grief. Because my page is healing through grief with Christie. I post a lot on my Christie Lynn Facebook page, but I also run the Facebook page that's I Am a Motherless Daughter. That's mine. And then with two other
the
girls,
I'm a Motherless Daughter is like the one that you created. I had to look that up. There's so many of those. Like,
there are
daughter
ton. And then
group things.
The one that's my mom is in heaven. A girl, Danielle, started, and now me and another blogger run the page with her. So I guess I kind of am involved in 3 pages on Facebook, mine plus 2 others, and then I have an Instagram too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll definitely put that in the show notes. I know a lot of like, just from being active in, the community, and well, maybe community is the wrong word, but being active in like this, the same women, that are in our shoes. I see a lot of like them share, your blogs in the group. And it totally just dawned on me when I'm reading your blogs, like it says like the resources for, losing a mom or whatever. And it said like those Facebook pages. And I totally should have realized that like you created those. And I'm definitely.
Well, a few are mine. A few are some just ones I found. Motherless Daughters on Facebook is my favorite. It has like a bajillion people who follow it.
Oh yeah,
I think every motherless daughter on the planet follows that page.
Okay.
And then there's another one. I link all sorts of things I find. People will send me one sometimes like, hey, can you share this? I make sure I like it first because I'm not just going to share anything. I want to make sure it's beneficial to people. But yeah, there's links to all sorts of stuff.
Cool. Well, I will definitely include that. Is there anything else that you want to leave with the listeners that can just be anything related to losing your mom or grief related?
I think we covered all the big stuff.
So is mindset definitely something that you realized is important? I guess not, maybe mindset's the wrong word, but like realization of your reality, that seemed to be the whole like, backbone of this episode conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I think for a long time, I mean, I did it. I think everyone's guilty of doing it. Like you live in a lot of denial that you haven't accepted your reality. And I did a lot of that for quite a while before I got to a place where I was ready to fully accept it. And I think until you accept it, you're not able to even start healing. Maybe you start grieving when that person dies, but I don't think you actually start to heal until you have fully accepted it. And for me, that was when I was able to finally write about it and put it on a piece of paper, and show it to other people. It was when I finally decided to go to therapy. It was when I decided to finally tell people my story and reach out to other people who had lost a parent. I think for a while it was like, yeah, I was the girl without a mom, but I was doing just not so great coping mechanisms to deal with it and not addressing what was important. And I think until you address what's important, you can't fully even start to even try to heal. You're just grieving. You're not healing, which is why my page is called Healing Through Grief.
That's so important because I mean, people don't really realize that like you can heal through this, and they're two separate things that actually mesh together, but it's possible,
right?
And it's also, I think, important to, I guess I'll like leave off with this, but people understand that you're going to be grieving for the rest of your life. But I also think too that people don't really realize that you're going to be healing for the rest of your life too. Like you're not ever fully healed. Like it's not like that process stops, because as long as you're healing, you're grieving.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. I was like, I could be wrong. That could just be a very
No, that was good.
That
was good.
Okay. Thank you. And that's important to know too. I mean, it's like, okay, you can then focus on the healing and not just focus on the grieving. Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's like pretty encouraging and crazy to see. Like that sometimes could be like what gets people through the day, like knowing that healing is there. So
you're cutting off.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
That whole last sentence, but I can hear you now.
It's just crazy to think that like, that can get you through the day, like realizing that despite the grief, like you can heal, whether you blog or just talk about it or write about it or, whatever you do, even if you haven't found your outlet yet, but just knowing that it's not going to be, miserable forever.
Right. And I think it's important to just know that acceptance is the first part to healing.
Yeah. You definitely cannot heal personally, I don't think, until you have accepted your grief, but that's a whole other topic.
Right.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Oh my goodness. This has been like a dream come true since my mom died. I was like, oh my God, I love this girl. She is like my soul sister.
Well, you are so welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey friend, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Before you go, I have 3 favors to ask you. First, I wanted to let you know that I host a group for women where we share our day-to-day stories, challenges, and victories. If you want to come along for the ride, head to Facebook and search for Life After Losing Mom Community. Second, if you don't mind leaving me a review and telling me how I've helped you in your grief journey, I would greatly appreciate it. Finally, head to katbonner.com/podcast to access previous episodes and subscribe for episodes in the future.